Hello, 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 everybody. It looks like we're live. Oh, here we are. Fabulous. I'm just going to go into the Facebook group here and check that we are live. Good to see you all. And I'm going to tag everyone here. Okay. Give me a moment. Everyone, we are live. All right. Happy New Year. Welcome back. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas and New Year. Hello, Margaret. I haven't heard from you in a couple of weeks. How are you? I hope you had a wonderful Christmas and New Year. Now, so give us a like and a love as you're joining, and this will just help the algorithm, help other people be able to find the live as well. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about New Year, New Me. All right, I have been seeing a lot of people out there talking about how 2026 is going to be their year. Like, we see this every year, right, don't we? Beginning of the new year comes, we feel refreshed, we've had a break, we feel all renewed, we've got this enthusiasm and motivation because the new year has started again. And for many of you, that might mean that your new year, new you equals, I am going to lose the weight this year. So what we're going to talk about today is how to do this properly. See, the concept of new year, new me is not wrong per se, but it's how we approach that often can lead us to burnout and failure. And I want to make sure that you don't do that this year, because believe me, for I don't know how many years of my life, 10 years almost maybe, I was stuck in this cycle of new year, new me. This year I'm going to go even more perfect, even harder, and I'm going to win this time. And it never freaking worked. So I want to make sure that you win doing this, that you understand how to approach behavioral change in a way that's going to support your goals. So this is what we're going to be talking about, how to slow down, why slowing down is actually the fastest way to become that new you. All right. So don't do it like I did in the past. January 1 rolls around, you realize you still haven't achieved your goal, and you go out there even harder than you tried last time. No. That's not going to work. Even more strictness, more restriction, harder is not going to work for you if it hasn't worked for you in the past. Let's just leave that behind. It just kept me stuck for years. Okay, so if you've joined us, I see a few people are watching. Give us a like and a love. Let me know that you're here. Drop a comment, because I can't see who's watching and I want to say hi. All right, so let's look at, firstly, the problem with the all-in, the trying to be perfect. Here's what most people do when they are wanting to lose the weight, when they want to make change in their life so that they can achieve their weight loss result. They seek out the perfect plan, the perfect exercise plan, the perfect food plan, and they want to find something that is scientifically backed, absolutely, a plan that assumes perfection, a plan that says if you do this, it is guaranteed results. And then what do? They go and overhaul everything all at once. And then they also rely on the motivation that they feel at this time of year to keep them going. Hey Heidi, good to see you. Hey Reva, thanks for joining. Good to see you. Hope you had a good Christmas too. So we try and overhaul everything all at once, following this perfect plan. We rely on the motivation we feel at the beginning. And then we get frustrated and confused when a few weeks later it starts to fall apart. Let me give you an analogy that kind of describes this. It's like you are starting to run a marathon at a sprint pace. If you start to run a marathon at a sprint pace, you're not even going to make it to 5 kilometers, let alone the whole, 42.2 kilometers. No, you're going to burn out. You're going to pull out. You'll probably get injured. And then you'll start to tell yourself really bad stories about, oh, how you're just not cut out for running marathons, how somehow running a marathon is just not for you. But the problem was never you, it was the approach, it was the pace. And weight loss, any sort of behavioral change, works in the same way. So there's this thing called the January 19 effect. And I want to make sure that you do not fall into this trap. Believe me, this is where I was at every year. There's a reason that this conversation matters right now. And that is because the research and behavioral data consistently shows us that most New Year's weight loss resolutions actually start dropping off by the third week of January. So January 19 is often cited as that peak drop-off day. Gyms see this in their attendance. And, if you are somebody who's hit the ground running on January 1st, you'll probably recognize it in your own patterns from the past as well. January 19 is literally nicknamed Quitter's Day. And the timing makes perfect sense because in the first couple of weeks of trying something new, your motivation is high, and it's the novelty of trying something new that is motivating you. It's carrying the load. It's like that fresh start energy that we get when we're trying something new. But by around about week 3, that's when reality starts to kick in. And that's when we will often experience things like busy schedules or stress or social pressures. Or if we are going too hard too soon, we might experience things like hunger and fatigue or boredom with what we're doing, boredom with the food that we're choosing if our food is too restrictive and boring. We might start to notice old habits start to resurface, old coping patterns start to resurface, especially around things like busyness, around emotions, around stress, around anxiety, around social pressures. That's when old habits, old coping strategies, old connection strategies start to resurface. And suddenly this perfect plan that we'd started is no longer working for us. We can't keep it up because what it relied on was life being perfect, us being perfect. And the plan that we chose relied on a lot of willpower and not a lot of systems. So people don't necessarily consciously quit. They're not consciously quitting their goals, and I was never consciously quitting my goals either. We just stop because we are tired, we're burnt out, we are suddenly dealing with stress and busyness in our lives. We start to, miss workouts. We start to want to go out and socialize with our friends more. We loosen our food rules because we want a little bit of pleasure. We want to have a bit of cake, or we want to go out to dinner. Suddenly these very restrictive food rules that we set for ourselves don't tend to work in our life. And then we feel like we've failed because we're no longer adhering to the plan perfectly. And the critical part is this doesn't happen because we are inherently lazy. I mean, our brains are inherently lazy, but people are not inherently lazy. It happens because motivation was doing the work instead of habits, instead of nourishment of the body, instead of nervous system safety, right? Our nervous system and our brain need to feel safe about the changes that we're making. So as I said, I know this cycle intimately because I lived it for so many freaking years. In fact, it wasn't just every January, it was like every time I set out to achieve my weight loss goal, I would enter these Body for Life competitions. Does anyone remember Bill Phillips and his 12-week Body for Life competitions? I entered those things so many times, and every time I was starting it, I was starting with motivation. I was starting being driven by the emotion of motivation. And every time I started, I would tell myself, this is it. This is the time I'm going to do it. This time I'm going to do it perfectly. This time I'm going to succeed. I would prep the night before. I would take my photo standing there awkwardly in my underwear or holding the newspaper to prove the date, because these are the days before digital photographs. And we had to prove the date that we took the photograph because you had to do it within the 12 weeks. I was setting myself this hard and fast 12-week deadline. This is one of the things I don't recommend you do, by the way. And I would prep the night before. I would plan out all of my food and make sure all of my macros were perfectly balanced and that my food was immaculate, and I'd work out all of my gym routines and know exactly what I was going to be doing, exactly what exercise I was going to be doing at each little step of the way. And I'd start Monday absolutely fired up with all of this motivation about doing this new thing again and excited about the result that I was going to create. I'd hit the gym every single day. I'd be smashing it to start with. And then by Thursday, I was starting to feel exhausted. The weekend would come. There might be a small slip up, but I'd push on. I'd keep going. But by around about that week 3 period, again, I was wrecked. I was exhausted. I just wanted to relax. I wanted to relax my food rules. I wanted to relax being able to be sociable with my friends. Work would get busy, work would get stressful. I'd have to work longer hours and I wouldn't get to the gym. I'd miss workouts. Or my ex-husband would pick a fight and I'd be dealing with all of my emotions, and then I'd just want to go and escape and drink wine with my friends. Life started to take over. And my behavior, my habits started to slip. And that's what happened every single time. This perfect routine that I had set for myself was not working within my life. It didn't help me cope with busyness, with emotions. It wasn't working in amongst those parts of my life that I had to deal with. And the worst part wasn't actually the weight that I was carrying. The worst part was actually the loss of trust in myself. I started to believe that I couldn't lose weight, I couldn't do this, that there was something wrong with my body, that I was just going to have to put up with having this excess weight on my legs and hiding my legs forever, because I don't really hold it in my upper body. I'm genetically lucky that way, but I hold it in my quads, in my legs, my butt, my hips. That's where I hold it. Anytime I put on weight, it goes there. I was losing this faith and this trust in myself and starting to believe that there was something wrong with me, that I couldn't lose the weight, that I couldn't stick to this plan. Look, other people were able to do it. Why couldn't I? What is wrong with me? I'd been sold this idea that if I followed this plan to the T, because it was backed by science and research, that I would succeed. And if I deviated from doing things exactly as he laid out, the food and the workouts, then I was not going to succeed. I was not going to get that massive transformation in 12 weeks. And so because I was not able to stick to this highly rigid plan, guess what? It took me longer than 12 weeks to actually finally get to my goal. It took me 20 years of trying to figure this shit out to get to where I am now. I don't want that for you. You can go faster than this, because following a plan to a T is bollocks. Following something like that, taking that approach is bollocks. It does not work for everybody. It can work for people who are used to making big changes all at once, who do not have big emotions to deal with, who do not have work and busyness and tiredness and stress that they have to deal with as well. I wasn't failing because I needed more hard. I was failing because that approach was not right for me. It made everything harder than it needed to be. What I needed wasn't more intensity. I needed things to be easier. I needed them to be more enjoyable, more doable, more rewarding. They were hard. They were not enjoyable. I didn't feel like they were rewarding. I actually felt like I was punishing myself for having been bad for putting on the weight. Part of that was my approach, my mental approach, and how I was seeing this journey. But part of that was also how it felt, like viscerally, as I was putting myself through it. It felt like restriction. It felt like punishment. And when it comes to changing our behavior, we actually need to follow certain principles that work with our brain, with our nervous system, not against them. So let's look at the laws of behavior change, of habit change, because you want to think about the goal that you're trying to achieve here is about changing your habits, changing your automatic behavior, not just sticking to a bunch of rules that somebody says will work if you do it perfectly. So let's look at the 4 laws of habit change, because you want to make sure that any changes that you are making for yourself follow these laws. Because if you don't, you're going to make this harder for yourself, and you're going to stay stuck in that on-off cycle that I was stuck in for years. So, first of all, Q. This is basically environmental design. You want to make sure, most habits are actually triggered by environment in some way. So if you want to succeed, you want to make sure that you do set yourself up for success in terms of your environment. Your environment is set up to support you so that you're not relying on things like willpower, because as I said before, willpower is unreliable. It's an emotion. And just like happiness, we're not always happy, we're not always sad, we're not always angry, right? Our emotions are just energy that flows through us. Willpower and motivation, they're motivations that flow through us. They're with us some days, they're not others. So we can't rely on an emotional state for us to make changes in our life. You want to make sure that your environment is set up for success, and that does not mean making it perfect. The next thing you want to do is you want to make behavioral change enjoyable. You want to make sure that what you are doing, you enjoy doing. You want to make sure that your food is enjoyable, that you enjoy eating the food that you're eating. I was hating the food that I was eating. I was chasing shitloads of protein, putting protein powders in my oats, chugging down protein drinks, eating foam meat patties that we would get from the Chinese markets. They were nice. They were like really nice to start with. After you've chugged down hundreds of these damn things, you just want to throw up. I was having protein patty with rice and broccoli, like a bodybuilder would with chicken, rice and broccoli. Bland, boring, bleh. After 3 weeks, bleh. I just want to eat something tasty, right? You've got to make your journey enjoyable. So you've got to make your food something that you want to eat. Tasty, enjoyable. Right? If it's boring or joyless, your brain will rebel. And I see in the plant-based circles, a lot of people say, do a hard reset, get rid of all of the enjoyable foods, and, that will help normalize your brain chemistry. For some of us, that doesn't work. For some of us, that creates that on-off dieting mentality that we cannot stick to long-term. There's a reason why the potato reset is only 2 weeks. Right? It's not designed to be something long term. And I say, let's start out by doing something we know that we can sustain long term. Let's stop thinking about dieting. Let's stop thinking about weight loss as a short term thing. We're building new habits that we want to sustain for life. And to start with, you want to just start with where you're at the moment and make some small changes so that you can start creating momentum. And if you're going from eating, say for example, you're eating ultra processed foods at the moment and you strip everything down to just bland and boring, your brain is going to rebel because it's going to go too much change too soon. I do not like this. You still have to make what you're doing enjoyable. Make your food enjoyable. Make it tasty. Make it something that you know you're going to want to eat, that you're not going to rebel at the end of the night and then go and get Uber Eats, right? If your workouts feel like punishment if they leave you feeling exhausted, if you're trying to do everything perfectly because that's what you've been told to do, you have to do this exactly perfectly or else you're not going to succeed. Bollocks. Start with where you're at. If you're not exercising at all at the moment, that might simply look like putting on your shoes and walking out your gate for 5 minutes per day. You don't need to go and do some massive punishing workout. I wish I'd known that to start with. I was going from couch potato to 6 days a week at the gym. Or maybe not quite couch potato, but in my on-off periods I was like nothing versus all on, all off, all on. You don't have to do that. You just need to take it one step at a time. Or I was getting out my door and trying to go for a 5K run. I could barely walk 5Ks. Start with where you're at. Make small changes. Do something that you really enjoy. If you enjoy it, your brain is going to desire to do it. And you want to meet yourself where you're at right now. All of you will be at a different starting position. So you're meeting yourself where you are and going, okay, what's the next step to move me forwards? With my food, with my movement, with whatever habit that I'm changing, right? How can I make this habit that I'm changing more enjoyable? How can I make this journey more enjoyable? It's not about punishment. It's not about restriction. We want to do it we want to do it enjoyably, and keep making progress over perfection. Perfection doesn't win the race. Consistency does, and the way to build consistency is to make this enjoyable. The third step is to make whatever you're doing easy. This is where so many of us mess up. This is where we are trying to make changes that are too big too soon. And that when we do that, we make failure very easy because suddenly this thing that we've got to do becomes too hard. It's too overwhelming to our brain to make too much change all at once. We want to break it down into small steps, small doable steps. We want to make success easy to achieve and failure hard. Instead, most of us are making these great big changes that make failure extremely easy and success hard. That's how I was doing it. Right? When we take massive steps and try and change everything and be perfect from the get-go, we are going to trip ourselves up. This is too taxing for the brain to cope with all at once. We want to lower the bar to success, right? Make it easy for us to follow through on the things that we said that we were going to do. And this is how we build that trust with ourselves. We make it easy to succeed and then we keep going. When we make it hard for ourselves, we stop, we avoid, we resist, and we don't make that progress. The next step is the fourth step, is we want to make it immediately rewarding. Whatever we're doing, whatever behavior change we're making, we want to make it immediately rewarding. Not wait for the big reward at the end, which is the weight loss and the weight loss goal, or for that number on the scale to change, or for us to feel better. We want to make it immediately rewarding, and I don't mean rewarding with food. Those of you who reward with food, this means not rewarding yourself with food. This might mean rewarding yourself with a pat on the back and self-celebration. Our brain runs on dopamine. So if you only reward the big outcomes that you're trying to achieve and you ignore the small wins or the small achievements that you're making, your motivation is going to die. Motivation comes from that dopamine that we get from achievement. When you learn to celebrate your progress instead of only celebrating perfection or only celebrating those big wins, your brain wants to keep going. So one of the very first questions that I ask my clients in every single session is, what's going well? What are you celebrating? Right? They come to the calls wanting to lay out all the problems and all the things that haven't gone well. And I say, no, let's look at and celebrate what has gone well. Even if they think everything's gone to shit, even if they are beating themselves up over what hasn't gone well, and believe me, that's never 100% of the case. Some of them will come, oh my God, nothing's gone right yet. They've still gone down a pound. I teach my clients to aim for progress, to focus on the progress, look for the progress, and to celebrate the progress. Even if they've spiraled for a few days, we celebrate the fact that they might have stopped the spiral early. Where they might have spiraled for days at a time, but they stopped the spiral after a couple of days. Whoa, you've made progress. That's fantastic. And when they can see the progress that they're making, they feel like, oh my God, I am actually moving forwards. I am actually making progress. I can actually do this. Change is happening. And that gives them the dopamine to keep trying. If my clients, I'm going to be catching up with them again this week. Hi, Margaret. Hi, Reva. Can't wait to see you guys. But even if they normally fucking eat all the way through Christmas, but this year they allowed some treats sensibly, right? That's progress to celebrate as well. If you don't tackle your goals, your weight loss in this way, you are going to stay stuck in those on-off cycles, because all you're going to see is where you're not perfect. All you're going to be seeing is I'm not at my goal yet, and that's going to be hard. You want to use this dopamine motivation in a wise way, which is not I feel motivated before I take action. I get motivated after I take action and celebrate the fact that I took action. That's how we do it. That's how we get motivated. That's how we use dopamine to motivate us on this journey. So let me talk you through a couple of clients who have actually approached their weight loss goals in this very pared back way. Both of these clients were trying to go all out, hard out too soon, and were not succeeding. And so when we slowed things down, it became so much easier for them. So my client Tosh, and Tosh, if you're watching, hi, hope you don't mind me retelling your story, but he's a great example of this. He had been trying to transition to a plant-based diet for over a year before working with me, and he was really struggling with that transition because he was trying to change everything all at once. Now for him, there was so much newness, so many things that needed to change, that he needed to learn, that it was becoming extremely overwhelming for his brain, and he just kept saying no. He kept believing that somehow it was too hard for him, that he couldn't. He needed to learn how to cook, let alone learn how to cook plant-based. He needed to develop a planning and prepping routine, because his weeks were crazy, working 12-hour shifts and then studying in the evening. He just saw problems. He saw, I can't cook because I've got all these constraints. He needed to figure out weekends away when he would go camping with his family or his friends. He needed to figure out social eating as well. So none of this was impossible. It was just all too much to try and figure out at once. So we slowed it down. We didn't aim for perfection out the gate. Never do. We just aimed for cognitive simplicity. We started with breakfast the first week. That was just one meal. He prepped it for his week, done and dusted. That was a third of his meals handled right there. Sweet, with one little decision, one prep. Then we moved on to lunch. Lunch, I think it was. Again, one meal. He just chose one recipe to make. So he took away a lot of decision fatigue about needing several different recipes in the week. He took away decision fatigue about needing to think about multiple different meals, like lunch and dinner. He just like, okay, my lunch. I'm just going to sort my lunch for next week. I'm going to choose one recipe, and I'm going to learn how to make that one recipe. We slowed it right down. So by the second week, he was making both breakfast and lunch. And then when he was familiar with that, we started to change his dinner, and he made his dinner absolutely super, super simple. Most nights it was just baked potatoes or sweet potatoes with something on it, and then a green smoothie. Done, right? He could prep his potatoes in advance, decide what topping he was going to have on the potatoes, and then he just bagged up all his smoothie stuff and made that when he got home from work. We made it just so super simple for him to get his head around. And then we created a stupidly simple weekly planning and prepping routine that worked with his crazy schedule, not against it. He made his decision. 3 meals he was going to decide, his breakfast, his lunch, and his dinner. Just made those 3 simple decisions. Kept the style of food very similar. So for breakfast, he would often have oats, oatmeal, overnight oats, or he would make some sort of oat type bar that he would have for breakfast. So oats were usually the breakfast meal. Then lunch was more of like a full meal that he would make. He turned to the Plant You recipe book, and he used some of my recipes as well. He just used that because the book is super simple, right? You've got a picture, you've got all the pictures of the ingredients. It's really super simple for beginners. So he used that as his first step to choose his meals. He chose something that looked easy. Brilliant. And then for dinner, he kept that routine fairly similar. As I said, a baked potato and a green smoothie. And that formula just started to work for him. He was creating not only a food prep system, he was creating a meal choice system. So that made it super simple, less decisions for him to make. So we slowed it right down. Slowed down not just the progression of his change into plant-based eating, but we created a system that was extremely easy for him to just simply repeat. And when we slowed it down and made it easy, he stopped resisting change. His brain was like, oh yeah, this is doable. Oh yeah, this is actually enjoyable. Oh yeah, I can do this. And he started to build that confidence as well as the skill. And the weight loss that he lost, so he lost about 65 pounds in 7 months. That just fell off him. That fell off because of the new habits and the new systems that he was developing around. And those systems were easy, and they were doable, and they were enjoyable, and they were rewarding, because now he was going, oh my God, I can do this. He was celebrating his progress. He actually started posting in my client group, and he was posting all his meal prep photos in there, and he's going, oh my God, look at me. He became like the meal prep king, and he was actually inspiring everybody else to up their game when it came to meal prep. And he not only lost the 65 pounds, but he regained his energy too. Like, his energy was just in the tank when we started together, and that was not working for his 12-hour shifts and his study. Like, he needed his energy back. He got his energy back. He started to be able to get out and exercise. Like, he's an outdoorsy guy. He loved to go out and exercise out in the woods or in the hills, and he got his health back. He got off a ton of medications and reduced his pain, and he basically at the end was unrecognizable. And it's not because we pushed harder, it's because we worked smarter. We slowed it right down, and that helped him over time speed up and get a better result. Another client, Bev. Bev is my cousin's wife. I keep telling everyone about Bev's story. She lost about 80 pounds over a 2-year period. And she had been trying in the past, other people had told her, you need to cut out carbohydrates, you need to go and smash it out at the gym. And she would work out hard with a personal trainer, and she just felt like she was exhausted. She thought she was trying all the right things, and yet she was extremely exhausted. She couldn't seem to lose any weight, and she thought that it was her problem, her hormones. She had PCOS, so she thought that was limiting her ability to be able to lose weight. And so but she desperately needed to lose weight because her knees were now giving out on her. She had severe osteoarthritis in both knees, and a surgeon would not even take an appointment with her until she'd lost at least 15 kilos. Now, this poor girl had been trying to lose weight her whole life and following the wrong type of advice. So she reached out to me because she could see what I was doing, and I've known her for a very long time, and she said, please, can you help me? I've got PCOS, but can you still help me? I'm like, yeah, sure, let's go. And so we broke it right down. Now, Bev didn't want to become fully plant-based. She didn't want to give up meat, and I said, that's not a problem, but we're going to look at what you are doing, and we're going to break it down, and we're going to make some changes so that weight loss becomes the inevitable outcome for you. So we didn't even start with food with Bev. I just started with water, with hydration, because I could see she was severely dehydrated. And I thought, you know what, if we can start with some water and actually get her body hydrated, she might actually feel better, have a bit more energy, and then we can start looking at food. So she was drinking 3 large coffees a day, and she was having bugger all water. So all we did was swap out 1 coffee for a litre of water. And I think she lost about 2 kilos in that first week just by getting hydrated. She was now being able to flush some stuff out of her body. And I think just drinking a bit more water, she was probably having a few less food cravings and eating, slightly less food. And then over time, we layered in a little bit more water, and then we looked at her food and we layered in vegetables. So she wasn't eating enough vegetables. So we said, let's make half your plate vegetables. After that, we addressed dairy because she had PCOS. She decided to remove dairy from her diet, and that was an easy switch for her. She switched out cow's milk for oat milk, which she found that delicious and a very easy and doable swap. She was eating ice cream in the evening, so she switched that out to fruit, and she actually really loved it because she loves fruit, and she actually didn't miss the ice cream in the end. And with each little change that we made, the weight kept coming off. We swapped out her healthy organic cereal, extremely expensive organic cereal, which was coated in coconut oil and extremely high in fat, extremely calorie dense. We swapped that out for a green smoothie. And she absolutely loved the change, and she felt nourished. And again, as we made these little swaps, her weight started to just keep coming down. She was also able to do this not with the restrictive ways and the hard punishing ways that she was doing it in the past. We didn't add in exercise, no exercise during this period. She couldn't. Her knees were not capable of exercising, right? So we didn't even give her a step count. So she didn't exercise at all. We just looked at the food. She was actually eating more carbohydrates. She didn't have to strip out all the carbohydrates. She was eating more volume, so she wasn't going hungry like she was before. She didn't feel depleted. She was actually more nourished. As I said, she didn't want to give up meat completely, but we significantly changed the proportions of what was going onto her plate. We reduced the proportion of meat, and the rest of it became plants. And she ended up having way more plant-based meals in her diet. So her breakfast and her lunch were plant-based, and it was only the dinners that weren't. And then anytime her husband, my cousin, was away. He used to travel quite a bit for work. Anytime he was away, she would make herself her own plant-based meal because John used to cook. So, we changed the proportions of what she was eating, but we didn't start out hard and fast all at once. Her calories were naturally dropping. Her hunger was naturally reducing because she was now feeding her body what she needed, and she wasn't trying to starve herself. She didn't feel deprived at all, and she naturally started to increase the behavior. She started to refine and increase what she was doing. So she added more water. She started to become that annoying person. That's what she calls herself. That annoying person that would walk around with a water bottle and tell everybody to drink more water because they were dehydrated. And she said this was the easiest weight that she'd ever lost. Not because we had a perfect plan and she thrashed it from day one, but because we layered in these little behavioral changes over time that were doable, that were enjoyable, that she could stick to, and that created momentum for her, okay? I have a lot of emotional eaters as well. So if you're somebody who knows that your plate itself is not the thing that you need to change per se, but it's the reason why you're eating that needs to change, as in that you have some eating behaviors where you're eating for emotion or because you're tired or because you're stressed, you're bored, whatever it might be, you're just cleaning the plate because it's just an automatic habit, right? For my clients who are at this point, the weight loss is not about the perfect food. They're already eating well. Their issue is how they respond to these uncomfortable feelings and sensations and self-talk and limiting beliefs and what do we call it? Uncomfortable brain sensations, uncomfortable brain chatter that comes up. In these cases, for many of my clients, food has become the way to suppress all of this discomfort that they feel. So their work isn't about better meal plans and more restriction and working out harder. Theirs is around learning how to pause between feeling discomfort and the reaction of eating, right? Putting that little bit of pause in between is easy to do. It's hard because it's a new behavior and your brain thinks there's something wrong, we've got to react. But the actual act, the one thing that we're practicing is that pause, learning to slow down long enough to stop the reactive subconscious mind wanting you to react, and long enough for the conscious brain to step in and start to assess what's going on, to see what's going on, and just to ask, what's actually going on here? How can I resolve this problem differently? And that's a new habit that they're learning. It takes time, it takes patience, and it takes practice. It's a little like learning a new language. So we don't change our behavior by being perfect. Many of these patterns that my clients have were learned unconsciously in childhood. We don't erase decades of learned behavior like that overnight. We have to give ourselves time, and we need a better strategy. We need to break it down. We need to make it simple to do. We need to make it enjoyable to do. We need to make sure that it is something that feels good, that is easy to do, is rewarding. And we need to make sure that we set up our environment to support us so that winning is more the outcome rather than losing. We need to give yourself time and a better strategy. Let me know, by the way, guys, if you've got any comments or any questions that you would like me to answer. I'll come back. Okay, so just moving on. Our brain, why we don't want to take big changes all at once too, is that our brain resists these big changes. It is very, very normal because our brain loves familiarity. Familiarity equals safety. Predictability equals secure. Even if the changes that we want to make are good, right? Good changes, even good changes, can feel extremely uncomfortable at first. And this is in any sort of change. If you've ever moved apartment or house, if you've ever moved country, if you've ever moved job, you will feel this level of discomfort. It's like, this is weird, I don't like this, even though you desperately wanted that change. I remember when I first bought this apartment, it was over 11 years ago now, I was so super excited to move in. I'd had this checklist of all the things that I wanted in my apartment that I was buying. Needed to have a large outdoor balcony, and I wanted to have views of the city, and I wanted to have sunshine and light. And when I found this place, it just ticked all of the boxes, and so I was so super happy to move in. But as soon as I moved in, guess what? This brain might have been like, yeah, we just did it. This brain was like, that is weird. This is not my place. This is not where I belong. This is uncomfortable. And that's normal. Now I love this place. Like, this is my place, right? I love living here. When I changed out some cabinets, I changed the bookcase behind me. There's another bookcase over in my hallway as well. I changed them out because they were a little bit old and a little bit falling apart, and I'm like, I deserve some new stuff. And so this brain was like, yes, we need to change this. It's going to be better. It's going to look better. It's going to go better in the place. It's not going to take up so much space. And so when I changed it, I'm like, yay, go me. Look what I just did. And this brain's sitting there going, my place looks weird now. This place doesn't look like my apartment anymore. This doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right. I don't feel like I'm in my own home. And again, that's normal. It takes a bit of time for the lower part of your brain to get used to something that is new and unfamiliar, right? Even change that our brain consciously wants, our subconscious brain wants familiarity. Your conscious brain wants better. Your conscious brain wants the outcome. Your conscious brain wants you to do things better. Your subconscious brain wants same, familiarity, comfort, its security, its predictability. It does not like change. So this is why when you try and change too much all at once, your brain actually pushes back on you. Your habit brain lives in your subconscious mind. These are automatic programs, and your brain does not like to update does not like to update 600 programs all at once. No, imagine that you are a program writer, like in IT. Imagine that someone dumped 600 new IT projects, new programs for you to update all at once. Say you're an Apple programmer, and your job is to update all of the programs or the stuff that sits behind the functionality of an Apple iPhone. Say they dump you 600 new projects to change all at once, and it's got to be done in 12 weeks. And you sit there going, get out of here. That's a year's worth of work that you're trying to get me to do in 12 weeks. This is what you're trying to do to your brain when you try and change too much at once. Guess what's going to happen to that programmer? They're going to go, you are overworking me. I'm going to quit. That's why we quit, right? It's too much. We demand too much of ourselves too soon. We want to slow it down because we'll make so much more progress if we slow it down. That's how, when you change things, when you make smaller changes, your brain adapts quicker. You start to create momentum. You start to create some results. You start to build the motivation. And then you can take more and more steps. Think of it like climbing a ladder to the roof. We can't just jump to the roof. We've got to take it one rung at a time, right? That's how we want to layer in our behavior. That's how we want to layer in our changes. We start to build trust with ourselves that we can do what we say we're going to do, and we start to be able to change more and more and more. We start to be able to actually run faster and take bigger steps the more that we do this as well. All right, so let's finish it up. As you head into this year, I fully believe that you can become your new you this year, but I want you to slow it down and stop trying to be that new you right now. Allow yourself to take this whole year, if need be, to really drive your change, drive your behavioral change. The slower you take it as well, the more your identity stays up to date with you, the more your identity comes along for that ride. So I want you to think about, how can you meet yourself where you are at right now? Start with where you're at. And how can you think about slowing down the habits that you are wanting to change? It's great to know where you want to be and all of the changes that might need to happen for you to get there, but how can you just slow it right down and choose one at a time to start with? How can you focus on one micro habit at a time? Not one perfect habit, one micro habit. How can you set up your environment to support that new behavioral change? How can you make that new behavioral change more enjoyable? How can you make it easier for you to do? Like, is that step small enough for you to take? Is it less effort for you to take? If you're looking at that new behavior that you want to adopt and you're going, ooh, and you've got some resistance coming up, slow it down. One little step. Make it easier. If you're looking at something and going, I don't really want to do that, there is a problem with your plan. How can you make it more enjoyable and easier? And then I want you to think about how you're going to make it rewarding for yourself as well. What are you going to do once you've done the thing that you say you're going to do? How are you going to reward that behavior? And I'll give you an example. And I know this is a kind of a food example, but I'm a coffee a day person, right? When COVID closed down the world and we all had to stay inside, we were allowed outside for an hour of exercise every single day. Gyms were closed, couldn't go to the gyms. And so I promised myself that I was going to go for a walk every single day. And how I rewarded that new behavior, that's how when I would go and get my coffee. So there were a couple of places that were open, but one was open right on the other side of my neighborhood. They had a little window at the door. They were allowed to stay open because we didn't have to go inside to order. We could just stand at the window and order. And so I said, okay, I am going to go for a walk every single morning, and then I'm going to swing by that coffee store and I'm going to get my morning coffee from there. That's going to be my reward for going for a coffee. I wasn't layering in extra coffee or adding extra food, extra calories as a reward. This was calories I was already getting, but I was going to make sure that it came after my exercise, after the walk that I'd gone on. I was going to keep my body moving even though we were in lockdown. So little things like that can enforce the behavior that you're wanting to change. So what are you going to do? How are you going to make it? How are you going to set up your environment to support this behavioral change? How are you going to make it enjoyable? How are you going to make it easier and far less effort so that you will actually do it? And how are you going to reward yourself? What are you going to do? And do you know how you're going to tackle this? Let me know in the comments if you've decided what you're going to do. Or if you'd like some help figuring this out, I am actually running my next plant-based weight loss challenge starting the 19th of January, my time here in Australia. For anyone in the US, that's the 18th of January. So this is not a January reset. This is not a hard, let's go hard from day one. This is not a punishment. This is not a perfection. This is where we're going to slow things down so that you can speed up over time. We're going to learn micro habits that can actually take you far. We're going to layer in changes in a way that your brain can handle. So this year doesn't become just another January story that you repeat. And I'm not purposefully starting at January 19th because that is quit day. No, I'm not. It just that happens that January 19 happens to fall on a Monday for me. So let's make sure that you don't hit that January 19 fall off period. Let's keep you going. Even if you feel like you're making momentum already, let's make sure that you keep that momentum going. Come and join my challenge, and let's make sure that you keep the progress going. So if you don't want to burn out, if you're sick of starting strong and falling off track after a few weeks, if you're ready to stop fighting yourself, and you want a simple process that can actually work for you in your real life, then let's make sure that this year you can create your new you without perfection and struggle. Let's do it with just layering small behavioral change. If this is for you, if that's what you want. Because lasting weight loss isn't about more hard, it's actually about doing things a better way. Let's work smarter, not harder. All right, so if you're up for that, drop me a note in the comments or send me a DM and I will give you some more details about that. Okay, thanks for tuning in today, team. We'll sign off right here. I don't think any of you have got any comments. If you do, just drop them in the comments and I can always come back and write you a reply. All right, ciao for now. And once again, Happy New Year and welcome back. All right, let's smash it this year. We've got it.